So everyone has a pile of these scarves that were popular a while back. What can you do with them? I'm Angela of Artfully Sew, and here we get creative with our sewing, quilting, and upcycling projects. Today we're going to take these scarves and upcycle them into a picnic blanket. I decided that I wanted to make a picnic blanket for my son's wedding, and because I like to take old things and make them new, I decided it was worth a trip to the thrift store. So when I went to St. Vinnie's, I was looking for some handkerchiefs or something I could piece together to make the top part of the blanket. I also wanted to see if I could find something that I could use for the back, like a blanket or a nice big piece of fabric or something that would work for the backing. My daughter Nora came with me, and we didn't find any handkerchiefs, so we decided there are so many scarves at the thrift stores lately. I think scarves have kind of left their popularity, so there's tons of these scarves available at most thrift stores. What we ended up doing was picking out the scarves that we really liked first, and we found this one scarf that has dinosaurs on it. Also, these two scarves that have kitties on it, and they're kind of animal people. They have kitties, my son and my future daughter-in-law. And we found these fun patterns. This rust color was kind of fun, and this is one of the colors in their wedding. And this has birds on it. Birds! I know, birds, Sammy. And then we pulled in some other fabrics as well. And these are all scarves that were just hanging there. So the challenge with these scarves is that they are pretty flimsy. So I have to decide if I'm going to stabilize them or serge around the edges to keep them from fraying. The other thing I had thought about doing is just mounting it all on the long arm and quilting it as I go. I'm not sure, so I have to kind of figure that out. For the backing, I got two different choices. As I was looking in the blanket section of St. Vinnie's, there wasn't much to choose from. Around the corner, Nora and I spotted this shower curtain. The thing that's nice about this is it's a little thicker, or it's a little sturdier for the back, but it's not too thick to quilt through. The other thing I'm going to probably do, instead of using batting, I'm going to use an old blanket that I had here at home. The reason I want to use a blanket is because this is really going to be designed as a picnic blanket. I want it to be a little bit firmer, a little bit more cushionier for having that picnic. I just wanted it to have a little bit of a more hardy inside. So I think by combining this backing with this as the batting and playing around with these, I've got quite the project ahead of me since I'm trying to do this all in one day. We'll see. Another thing that I might do is, because I have so many scarves, I could probably make 2 blankets out of this. I'm hoping that I will be able to make a second blanket that I could list in my store on artfullysew.com. If you're hearing this, that means that I was able to do that. Now, if you go there and it's already sold, I'm always willing to do custom designs, so contact me. So I think it's time to get started. So let's figure out how to make this picnic blanket out of infinity scarves. Okay, it's time to do some math. Doing the math is my least favorite part.
This is much too hard for us. We can't do the sum.
I've never been a mathematician, but I've learned the hard way that if I don't try to think this through ahead of time, I'm going to end up with a mess. The first thing I want to do is I want to measure this backing. This kind of reminds me of something that you would make, like Jacob and Sons. Jacob and Sons. It'd be perfect for a toga.
Toga!
we're going to use it for a backing for this picnic blanket. So let me measure it first. We have a very long tape measure. So across 68 inches. So I'm going to write that down. Planning is so important, so let's write this down. The backing is what did I just say? 68, right? 68 inches by I know it's going to be long enough, so I'm not even going to, I don't really care about that. I just want to know how wide it is. I have to be aware that some of these, like these kitty ones, are a little thinner, so let's measure the width of these. Let's see, they're just under 20 inches. I think if I make the squares 16 inches, it will be about 64 inches square. Can you hear the rain? I love rainy days. So a 64-inch square blanket is a nice size. It will fold up nicely, fit in the back of the car. It actually, my plan is also to put it in this antique picnic basket that's from my grandma. So I think it will work. So now it's time to get cutting. Like I said, some of these fabrics are pretty sheer, and once I cut them, they're going to fray. The other thing that I need to do is kind of iron some of these. Whoops, my Cricut is chirping at me. One of my favorite pieces of equipment that I've invested in is a Cricut. This is an iron that most people use to fuse graphics to t-shirts or bags and things like that. But I use it mostly to iron large pieces of fabric, or if I am fusing some stabilizer to a fabric, I use it for that. It's really awesome because it covers a big surface area. So I can go along and iron this nice and flat. As you can see, this Cricut makes ironing go much faster. See how quickly it goes? It's really awesome. If you decide you want a Cricut, you can look for the link down in the description of this video. I can do that with all of my pieces. I just have to be careful that I don't have it too hot of a setting for these silkier fabrics. I got my serger all set up with some black thread. So let's see. Since this is my smallest one, I'm going to cut the kitty ones first. Sammy really wants to help me today. He actually just wants to eat my earrings. Because this fabric is so slippery, I'm going to cut, I was going to try to cut 2 out at a time, but I'm only going to do 1. I'm going to do 19 inches just to be safe. The moment of truth. Stay over there. Okay, let's see how this surges. Fingers crossed. It's not too bad. I guess what I'm realizing is that these are going to be hard to cut exactly the same size. I think I am going to just cut them generally to 18 inches. I'm going to do that plan where I put the backing on first, then the batting, and then I'm going to lay these pieces right on top of the batting and quilt as I go, and we'll see how it looks. I have all the squares cut out. I cut 2 of each scarf, which means I have 16 different squares. And they're all about 19 inches, give or take. now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this out and just kind of come up with a pattern before I mount it on to my long arm. And it's still a beautiful rainy day. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. Next up, I'm going to load this backing onto the long arm. I'm going to put the blanket on top and then throw the scarves on top and quilt them as I go. This is my favorite way to do things, is to experiment and go through and try things. You never know until you try.
Just do it!
And if it turns out to be a big mistake, we'll just start over or use the seam ripper. It's not a big deal. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try things out, because sometimes it's really worth the risk. This is the blanket that I'm going to be using as the batting. This is really a grippy fabric. I'm hoping that it will help stabilize the scarves. We'll see how this works. They're going to overlap a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I think it's kind of cool looking. And actually, these more slipperier ones I'm going to tuck underneath. Like that. Yeah, I think I like that. And if it has a little bit of a bump in it, that's okay. Kind of what you expect with this kind of fabric. I think I am going to put my gloves on though, so that my fingers don't keep catching on the fabric. I have these quilting gloves. You can get them at any fabric store. You could also use some garden gloves that have grippies on it like this. Jazz hands. This way my fingers aren't sticking, because I have very dry hands. Looks pretty good. Let's quilt it and see what happens. This has been really fun. It's a great way to use up some scarves that we don't wear anymore. So for the binding, I am going to use this Chenille-It. Chenille-It it's kind of like a tape. If you've ever seen chenille, how it frays up into strips, when I stitch it down and then I wash it, the edges will fray and it will make a really nice binding on this picnic blanket. I'm going to straight stitch this to the outer edge of this quilt, and when it's washed, then that chenille will pop up and it will look really cool. Okay, so I sewed the Chenille-It to the outside. I am going to spray it with some water and toss it in the dryer for a little bit to make that bias bloom. It's fun because they call this blooming bias. I think that's so fun. So, almost done. Yay! So this blanket turned out great. It's perfect for picnics, for sitting and watching the fireworks for the 4th of July, or just putting in your backyard. The thing I like about it is that because I used a thicker blanket, It's really comfy. It's got a good pad. Plus, if the ground is a little bit damp, it probably will prevent you from getting your tushy wet. It was really turned out to be a really fun, easy project. It only took me a day. And although even if you don't have a quilting machine, you could probably make one just on your domestic machine because this is small. The colors are so fun. And all of these scarves came from St. Vinnie's. There are so many to choose from. It was easy to find a color palette to make it all work. So I just can't wait to give it to my son for his wedding present. I'm hoping they enjoy it for years to come. To make this present extra special, I'm going to fold up this blanket and put it in this old picnic basket that's from my grandma. So hopefully they'll enjoy it too, passing on a little heritage. Okay, time to wrap it up. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see more of what we do here. Well, thanks for joining me. So glad you could make it. Remember, you can artfully sew. Bye-bye. You kind of match this color palette. Stella, where's the chippies? Thanks for watching Artfully Sew. See you next time.